Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. And it's Tuesday morning. It's time to do a motor tip. We know that this is a huge part of our children's lives, that their ability to move their muscles in a way and have them respond to be able to do the kinds of things that they want to do. It's essential, right? And we typically separate motor skills into 4 different areas. Gross motor, fine motor, visual motor, and oral motor. And today I want to talk specifically about gross motor. This is the area, and you'll hear this when you're talking to experts, when you're at school, they'll talk about gross motor activities. These are the large muscle kinds of things that our children are doing. This is walking and standing and sitting and running and jumping and skipping and kicking a ball and hitting a ball. All of those different kinds of activities. Now, for some of our kids, they're not going to be behind. They might be completely at a typical level with their gross motor activities. But a fair portion of our kids are either going to be a little bit behind or even more substantially behind when they initially get assessed. I will tell you, cautionary tale too, that the first time my child was assessed, he was not behind in terms of these skills. But then I asked for him to be reassessed a little bit later when he was in kindergarten, and he was enough behind that he was eligible for services that would help him with his gross motor. So even if at one point your child is not behind, make sure, because other factors can contribute that make them behind. I was kind of thinking that it was because my son had spent so much more time doing therapy than we had. You know, the typical child gets a whole lot of time to run and play and jump, and my son still had some time to do that, but 40 hours a day, or 40 hours a day, that's impossible. 40 hours a week, he was having therapy. And so a lot of that time, you know, he was doing other things. There was still some gross motor stuff that was happening in that therapy, but, you know, he ended up being behind. I now look at it and say, oh, wait a second. The things that he's behind on weren't so much because of that, but because there was a visual motor issue that we weren't able to recognize until he was later. So we're kind of attacking things from that perspective now. But for our kids who have an Asperger diagnosis, what we're going to see a lot of times is that there is a lack of coordination, right? That kind of goes hand in hand with the diagnosis. So, and in any case, that our children, you could poo-poo it and say, I don't know how important that is to me, that, you know, my child be able to play basketball and dribble a basketball, right? I want my child to speak. I want my child to be able to understand what's happening around him and communicate with what's happening to her, right? These are my priorities. However, we know that having a social existence and being able to understand what's happening socially is going to be part of a success story, right? We can say that. And that having gross motor things working for them is going to help them in social situations. I think always, but especially when they're kids. I'm seeing this, that my son's ability now when he's in 3rd grade to negotiate the playground is dependent upon him being able to dribble a basketball this month. Now, next month, it'll be something else. It'll be kickball or baseball, but this month, it's basketball. And, you know, it's something that we're having to work on. It's not going to hurt him to be learning how to dribble a basketball and get better at it, right? And it can only help him to make more friends. So don't discount motor as just being something so that your child can play in a team sport. There's a social element to it as well. So from time to time, we give you a tip on different motor things. And today I wanted it to be kind of handed, because a lot of these things go hand in hand with other things. Have you noticed that? So you do the motor and it helps with the social. Woohoo! It's a twofer. So I was thinking about what particular lesson we could talk about with motor, and I was thinking, well, you know, it's summer, baseball is happening, kids want to play baseball, and there's the whole dealing with the ball, catching the ball, and hitting the ball with the bat. And this can be something that's really, really difficult for our kids, because being able to focus visually on something long enough to be able to swing the bat and connect with it might not be our child's strongest suit. So how can we put these things all together, be working on being able to focus attention, which is actually an executive function skill, focus your attention, but focus visually, which is visual and motor and a little bit social, and coordinate it all together, which is all gross motor, right? Well, there are lots of lessons and skills to help our children to be able to do the gross motor things and to be able to hit a ball with a bat that are really, really useful. But the main thing that we want to know about any skill that we want to teach our children is that we have to make it reinforcing, right? We have to set them up for success. Well, we were talking before about antecedents and all the things that are involved in behavior. And when you think about we did a task analysis on hitting a ball with a bat, there's a lot of places where the child could disconnect and not have success, right? Because the ball is coming towards them. The child might be afraid of a ball. There's a whole timing issue. They've got to be looking at the ball, right? So a lot of variables to try to be in control of, and you can't really be in control of a lot of them, right? Because you can't predict where the ball is going to go. Somebody throws the ball or the machine throws the ball, and the ball might be low or the ball might be high, and getting your child to focus on the ball really is the thing that you need to have control over. Well, lots of different things that you can do. And first of all, you want to start with a ball that's really, really soft, because our children tend to, if something's coming at them, it's kind of overwhelming, right? And we all flinch and don't want to be hit by the ball. I just made that face, and I know that our technical director, Emily Goodwin, is going to freeze frame one of those horrible faces I just made. Emily, I'll get even with you later. In any case, I digress. Get a softball so that if it's going to hit them in the face and you want for it to not be aversive, make sure that they are not flinching away from the ball, because you're not going to make the progress. So have it be something that's really soft, and make sure that you're reinforcing them and saying how great they are that they got hit by the ball and it was no big deal, right? But then there's a little trick that the women's softball team did before the Olympics. I think it was 2 Olympics before, that I just thought was brilliant. My dad used to coach professional women's softball. So anytime there's something about being, another trick of being able to make better contact with a bat and a ball, I always take note, because my dad would have thought it was fascinating. And I loved what this coach did for the women's Olympic softball team. They took all of their balls, their softballs, and they wrote numbers on them. And they would rotate the balls so that the balls wouldn't all be there at the same time. And you might be thinking to yourself, okay, this is going to get expensive, but not that expensive. You can go to the dollar store and get really soft balls and get maybe 4 of them and write numbers on them. And then what they would do, when they were doing practice with the women's softball team, is that they would pitch to them, and the girls were expected, the women, excuse me, were expected to yell out the number that they saw on the ball. So it didn't matter whether they struck out. It didn't matter whether they got a home run in practice. What mattered to the coach, and what he constantly reinforced, was, I don't care if you never swing. I want you to yell out the number on the ball. And what they found was that all of the girls' batting averages went up. Why? Because they were focusing on that part of the task, which was recognizing the ball number on the ball, which required intense eye contact. And so when they did swing, they were much more likely to connect. All of their batting averages went up. And there are teams all over the world now that use these techniques of putting numbers on the ball. Well, numbers may not be reinforcing enough for our kids. Maybe you, instead of writing a number on the ball, can put stickers of their favorite characters, whether it's a Disney character or something else, put it on the ball and throw it to them and tell them, you have to tell me, who did you see? Did you see Donald Duck? Did you see Mickey Mouse? Because then you're going to get that important step, which is looking at the ball the whole way in. I think the key is making it reinforcing enough for them to do it. The Olympic coach was saying, I don't care about anything else, but people who see the numbers on the ball, they're going to get the most praise for what's going on. For our kids, we got to make it something interesting on the ball. But when we do, we're going to be working on visual motor. We're going to continue with the gross motor with the swinging, but we're going to be more likely to have that be reinforcing. Because let's face it, there's nothing reinforcing about striking out, right? But when you feel the bat hit the ball, that's really reinforcing, I think, for almost everybody. So, but again, we want to be reinforcing it with other things. So when they do hit the ball, it's praise, it's whatever is reinforcing to them individually. But I think a really interesting thing that we can borrow from the women's Olympic softball team, so that we're working on all those things together and getting the gross motor under control at the same time. It's a wonderful thing.